book of Genesis, and I don't know if we'll get into Job, but at least Genesis chapter 1. Father, may we minister unto you from your word, the one you love in your word. Moses, our blessed friend in Christ, yes. And from those who love you, Jody and I, blessed Sabbath day.
It is Saturday, so blessed Sabbath day, Al. Blessed Sabbath day, Craig. I love and miss you.
Bless you, buddy. Okay. Glory to the Lamb of God. Welcome this meal, our Savior, Lord Jesus. Taste and see that the Lord is good. Be attentive, O my soul.
Be attentive, O my soul. Because your soul knows truth. Hallelujah. He created us to know truth. Yes, but it's our personality in the way. Yeah. It's our thoughts that we've been raised with to believe since we've been born, basically. We've learned them all. So those are that's Satan's seat within us.
So we thought we'd start.
Revelation 2 explains.
Start back at the beginning. Mm-hmm. So it helps everybody understand what's going on from the beginning.
Bless you, Creator.
Yes, hallelujah. Bless you, Father. Genesis chapter 1, verse 1. In the beginning, God created the heaven and the earth. Verse 2. And the earth was without form and void, and darkness was upon the face of the deep. And the Spirit of God moved upon the face of the waters. And God said in verse 3, let there be light. And there was light. Verse 4, and God saw the light, that the light was good. And God divided the light from the darkness. Verse 5, and God called the light day, and the darkness he called night. And the evening and the morning were the first day. Okay. In the beginning, God created the heaven and the earth. Yeah, that's what he gave Moses to write. And while he was ministering unto him back in the days around that fiery bush, and beyond that day, God was giving him all the things that he needed for him to know and understand and write down, log in, as it were, of all that God did and all that he is, was, and forever shall be. Amen. Yes. But since through the value of time, and like Daniel says, and learning shall be increased, and like it says with John in Revelation, that the fulfillment of God's prophecies and word and everything else that he is and that says and does should be fulfilled. It's Revelation chapter 10. Mm-hmm. We understand now of what all did take place. Well, as far as man is concerned, to understand and reap.
You have to read the words of God first. You have to read Genesis all the way through
Revelation. Yeah.
Well, yeah, exactly. Yeah. Jesus' words in the New Testament and the Old Testament as well, because that's God himself speaking through Jesus.
So in the beginning, there was a time before the beginning that isn't written down, logged in, or anything else that we've come to understand of what actually took place in heaven.
The resumption.
Yeah. God would that none should perish, and God first loved us. So, yeah, before the beginning, God had create time and space for the existence of all things to be and remain until fulfillment of time in his timeline to be accomplished.
He comes back.
Yep, because in Isaiah chapter 14 it talks about Satan and how he was kicked out of heaven, and Jesus said, I saw Satan fall from heaven as a streak of lightning. Mm-hmm. So, before the beginning, Satan had learned what it means to have a personality, from what we know of nowadays, as he developed an attitude.
Yeah, pride.
Yep, against God.
Yep. Like everyone has. That's Satan's seat within us.
Yep, he became prideful and thought, oh man, I'm going to be so like God and blah, 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 blah.
Yeah, I'm smarter than what the preachers or anybody else teaches us.
Yeah, and so from that point on, and it was, okay, from the time Satan thought about it to the time God realized it, kicked him out of heaven, was instantaneously. Just, yeah. You shall know your beginning. You shall know your end from your beginning.
Yeah, because Isaiah 12 explains what 12:14 or 14:12. I think it's 14:12. I'm sorry, but it explains that Satan was top dog angel, if you want to call it that, in heaven. He was adorned by God. Yeah, he was adorned by God, and he was blessed, but yet he had pride in him. Immediately he was kicked out of heaven. He was not even going to be able.
Which goes to show everybody, that you think you're all that in a box of smoke. You'll like Saul lost his anointing and on and on. King Saul. Yeah, so
First and second King.
We're not any greater than King Saul or Paul or David or anybody else. We're far shorter than anywhere close to being Jesus or anything else, or God. So we understand that, God still rules and reigns.
Right.
His law is impervious. It's immutable. It will never change.
And with his born again, when you have it in you, you're the same. All of us are all the same in the same Christ-like mindedness. Mm-hmm. That is what is expected from heaven. It's expected from every human being.
Yep. So the word says, you shall know your end from your beginning. Well, here's the beginning in Genesis, and the end is in Revelation, where it speaks of, I shall spew you out of my mouth.
Mm-hmm. That's the
like
last
Jesus says, I never knew you.
That's the last you'll hear, too.
So you'll know your end from your beginning. Well, your beginning, God spewed Satan out of his mouth, out of his... he didn't want to know anything by the name of Lucifer. He spit him right out.
Mm-hmm.
And in that spitting came the creation of all time and space. You mean God spit and here we are? Yeah. Planets.
Mm-hmm. God.
A universe, and...
Who are we to question him?
Right. So...
Like you said to Job many times.
But God needed a place apart from heaven to place Satan and the 1/3 of the angels of the heavenly host that fell with him. He needed a place for them because God is all just, all loving, all knowing, all this stuff. And he would that none should perish, not even Lucifer and those angels, that hopefully they would repent, return, and, maybe allowed back in heaven to clean toilets or whatever. But, but they were too busy doing other things. And we'll get into that here shortly. Verse 2. And the earth was without form, order. Didn't have any order in it at all.
Mm-hmm.
It was total chaos, because from the point of God spitting them out into this new plane of existence we know of as planet Earth and time and space, that he needed a place apart from heaven to put them. So he created that. And it was total chaos, because all those angels and Satan himself were just bang shooting back and forth, left and right, like a pinball machine throughout the entire expanse of time and space. Touching every planet and everything that goes bump in the night.
Yeah, remember they're spiritual beings, so that's why they were able to do that. Yep. They weren't just human.
Yep, and void. It was void of any and all love that God is. Mm-hmm. And for sure,
void of light.
Right.
Why? Because the truth. Yep. That's what light is.
Right, and darkness. Yep, and darkness was upon the face of the deep.
Yeah.
Right.
Lies and deceit.
Yeah. Well, not only that, but it was total pitch blackness. There was no light at all. Right.
Right, of course.
And the Spirit of God moved upon the face of the waters. So you want to know why we say he spit them out? Well, here it is, upon the face of the waters. Why else would God call it waters? To Moses. Okay? And the Spirit of God moved upon the face of the waters, upon all the messages that he was going to give. He set that all up from before the beginning, so that when he spit them out of his mouth, and this is all instantaneous. I mean, God did, he did so much more in just a split second than we could ever imagine of doing throughout all of our created time and space here on earth.
He's God.
Yep. Verse 3, and God said, let there be light, and there was light. Okay. So from the very beginning, when God created the heaven and the earth, it was without form and void, darkness upon the face of the deep, and the Spirit of God moved upon the face of the waters. There was no light. So during this time of the creation, Satan and all of his minions were out there creating all sorts of different things and entities as far as they knew, because in Isaiah it says he wanted to be like the Most High God and all this stuff, And so God did allow Satan, to be a God like being. It's all's fair in love and war and spit. So
he gives them what they desire.
Yeah, so he gave it. Yeah, exactly right. He gave.
So watch out what you're asking for and praying for.
Yeah. So he gave him the desires of his heart, and so he was able to create certain things: dinosaur, Cro-Magnon man, probably the aliens on other planets and stuff. We don't know if there are any other beings out there. Well, be forewarned and forearmed. I mean, they,
he'll reveal it.
Yeah, because if Satan created them, there you go. And so they are what they are. So when God said in verse 3, let there be light, and there was light, light itself turned everything to stone. Hello, dinosaurs, Cro-Magnon man, cavemen, okay? They all turned to stone in an instant, because light had never been in this existence before, ever.
That's why they're finding all these different bones and stuff and skeletons and stuff.
Right, yeah.
Because of it.
And God saw the light, that it was good, and God divided the light from the darkness. Oh, well, what? It just means that, there's light in the heavenlies, okay?
Oh, yeah.
But there's a certain amount of void between a piece of light and another piece of light, stars or moons or suns, whatever. But there's a distance between them, which is darkness. Even in a person's life, in their own mindset of thinking, there's that void of darkness between one good thought and another good thought, while the rest of it is just evil, wicked, mean, and nasty, whatever. I think I'll just go out and do good today, or in their mindset of thinking, we used to do the same thing. It's not a matter of you get tired of thinking about evil, wicked, mean, and nasty. It's just a matter of there's the Spirit of God moving upon the face of the waters, and from dust we came, to dust we shall return. Well, between the two spots, like Jesus spit on the ground and made a muddy paste and rubbed it in that guy's eyes, and that was blind, and he could see. Okay, that's Jesus reverberating what God did in the very beginning with dirt. He spit on the ground and formed man from the dust of the earth.
Yep, breathed into his nostrils, and they became a living soul.
Yeah, not that God's ever finished spitting or just continues to spit or slobber or drool. No, he doesn't do that. He has a purpose for everything that he does, is, and forever shall be. Hallelujah.
Yes, and Jesus is his spokesman. So anytime you see Jesus' words, read them and understand. This is from the Holy Father of heaven, and he alone, with Jesus and the Holy Spirit, is holy and righteous. You can never, ever fight against him and ever win. You will lose.
Yep.
You either have total holy righteousness within you through born again, or else you are not going to have righteousness within you.
And that's His righteousness, not your own.
Exactly. That's what's confusing with Paul's teachings. It says righteousness. Oh, even Jesus said it. But he didn't elaborate on it because he wants us to have that Holy Spirit within us. So we're able to discern what he means by his righteousness.
Yeah.
And he didn't say his righteousness. He just said righteousness. But it is his righteousness. As you read his words, you'll learn it.
It's God's righteousness. In other words, you don't become a God, even though he says in the Old Testament, even I called you gods.
Right.
So, but let's not get carried away with all of that.
Don't make a religion out of it.
No, absolutely not. Yeah,
all the ones on
$1 and everybody else.
Yeah. And that.
We're mini gods. Oh, shut up.
Oh, what are you? Scriptures explain why.
Yeah, because they're trying to enforce the idea of, we can judge. No, you can't. Jesus said, judge not. Because in your judging, it's a distraction, for one. For two, it manipulates your mind to assume that you have some kind of power
and
or somebody
righteousness of your own.
You ain't got squat.
No, you don't.
Yeah, God is all powerful. Verse 5, and God called the light day, and the darkness he called night. Mm-hmm. And the evening and the morning were the first day. Now, the evening, okay. Mm-hmm. It's like you drop a rock into a bucket full of water, or a kid's swimming pool full of water, or whatever, and it creates a ripple. Mm-hmm. Waves. Okay. The evening, it had to settle down, had to settle in. All those stars and moons, planets, everything else it was going to be, and at this point are, had to finally stop moving. You say the universe is forever expanding. Yeah, right. Even if it is, what's it to you? Okay. But the morning, yeah, like, okay, okay.
Yeah.
The morning here is like a person mourns for a loss of a loved one. Okay. Mm-hmm. The entire expanse of time and space itself was mourning the loss of its existence within the very presence of God's mouth. Mm-hmm. Because it itself did not want to exist anywhere else but within God. It is a part of God that happened to just, he created it,
And just like and just like us being born again, we also do not want to exist on this planet without God.
Right.
At all.
Exactly.
For anything.
Right.
Because we understand through discernment, through his unctions and everything else, that he is who we are following. And he is the only one that gives us total peace. Yeah. Total peace, no matter what's going on out there. No matter what's going on in here. No matter what's going on anywhere. It's within us.
And thank you for that, baby.
Yes, thank you, Lord.
Even in the person's mind, there is the evening and the morning light. Mm-hmm. He called the day light, day. In the darkness, he called night. Mm-hmm. So, the light, he's calling day. Jesus says, live as people of the day. It's paraphrased terribly, but and the darkness he called night. The darkness is their dark thinking, your evil, wicked, mean, and nasty. So right there is the separation of not only soul and personality, but the separation between good and evil.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
And the evening, okay, when a person first comes to the enlightenment of Christ, of the love of God, whether they've heard about him forever or they just, or the rationale, the reasoning finally hits them that, yes, there is someone and something bigger and greater than you are, person you. Absolutely. And that is a marvelous movement within their lives.
It's the ultimate blessing to find out that truth is real.
Yeah, and the morning, everybody, I even wept The first time I ever went forward in church, because it was like, I, for one, was scared to pieces. I didn't know what to expect.
Yeah, because judgment hangs over every one of us because of the loss of our innocence.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It's follow Adam and Eve.
Yeah, and
mankind was cursed.
Right, and so we're mourning the loss of our innocence, but we're not taught that in church because they don't understand. They don't want to get it because that makes it a righteous thing. That makes sense. Yeah, it makes sense, and so they're so full of darkness, even though they preach a good word. It's like
they think their goodness is going to get them in.
Yeah,
good. God doesn't want good. He wants
holiness
and perfection. Yeah, he sure does. He wants quality, not quantity. Mm-hmm. He doesn't care how many people believe in Christ, as long as you are born again and you continue to maintain that thought process.
Through growing and maturing.
Yeah,
through
daily.
And through your own willingness and obedience each and every day. That's called having everlasting life
each
for God.
Each individual, might I add.
Yes.
Each individual.
Yeah, and that on having everlasting life for God each and every day.
Yep. Absolutely. Thank you.
Love them kisses.
Me too.
Okay, onward. Verse 6. And God said, "Let there be a firmament in the midst of the waters, and let it divide the waters from the waters." Leave it alone, please. Okay, and verse 7. And God made the firmament and divided the waters which were under the firmament from the waters which were above the firmament. And so it was. Verse 8. And God called the firmament heaven. Mm-hmm. And the evening and morning were the second day. Now hold on, there's a great amount of information here about the word firmament. In heaven, he is all spirit. Mm-hmm. God is spirit. We worship him in spirit and in truth.
And born again and maintaining it.
Yes, but you get there to born again by worshiping and understanding what worship is. Mm-hmm. That constant, conscious contact with the Creator, the God, the one and only true God of Israel. Okay. Mm-hmm. He is God of everybody.
Okay? Yeah, he is.
So he says in verse 6, let there be a firmament. Firmament, fixed. Absolute 100%. Write it down. Go to the bank. Okay, it's absolute. Mm-hmm. Let there be an absolute.
Just like truth is.
Yeah, in the midst of the waters.
Absolutely.
In the midst of the waters, that's right. That firmament, for one, is a physical plane of existence.
And the heavenly messages of truth.
Yes. Mm-hmm. And let it divide the waters from the waters. Let it divide the waters here from throughout all of this word here. Waters is messages, thoughts, ideas.
From him.
Yes. Let it divide the messages from the messages. Let it divide the waters from the waters, the messages from the messages, from the good messages of all that he is, that all that he will provide throughout all of time and space.
Just like Paul said.
Yeah.
Rightly divide the word of truth.
Exactly. Yeah. Exactly right. And from the waters, the other waters that are just earthly, everyday common variety, garden variety thoughts that, I guess this screw goes in that light fixture, and this nail goes in this wall, and my foot goes on this pedal to go, and this pedal to stop, and this pedal to clutch, and decision making.
Common sense too.
Yeah, exactly right. Common sense. Everybody says, common sense ain't that common. Oh, really? Do you drive?
Better be.
Do you use a cell phone? Do you get up and do you even get up and out of bed? In verse 7, God made the firmament. So there we understand God created everything. Okay. So the firmament is that absolute. Mm-hmm. Okay. And divided the waters which were under the firmament, that other fixed, absolute place, divided the waters which were under the firmament from the waters which were above the firmament. And it was so. Well, what's what? Okay, God made the firmament. All of the heavens, the space.
Universe.
And divided the waters. Waters here is the messages, for one. For two, it's the expanse of just elements. Space itself is an element. When you put it all into this great big glob of spit that he created, spit out of his mouth, that is the creation of all things. Okay. Well, I mean, if you look in a microscope, you spit on a slide and put it underneath a microscope. What do you got? I mean, not to get gross, but I mean,
particles.
But you got stuff of several different kinds. Because only in a microscope are you going to be able to see the difference.
Mm-hmm.
Because otherwise, you just see a glob of that, and it's like, gross. You turn your head, walk away, think about something else quickly. So you don't start getting sick. Anyway, and God made the firmament and divided the waters which were under the firmament from the waters which were above the firmament. So the waters which were under the firmament, okay, there's space. Let's get this idea dialed in here. God made the firmament, space and time. Mm-hmm. Divided the waters which were under the firmament. Okay, if the firmament is space, then the waters that are under the firmament are planets. Okay, where people are going to live. Okay. And those had to be divided from those, which were,
under heaven.
Yeah, and divided the waters which were under the firmament from the waters which were above the firmament. So, heaven itself is spiritual.
Because it's within you. The kingdom of heaven.
Okay, but I mean, in its own realm, it is a spiritual thing. So, it has its own firmament as far as absoluteness is considered.
Yeah,
okay,
true.
So you got three types of absolutes here. God's own place. This is why he gave it to Moses to write down, because there's, they talk about the third heaven and stuff like this, okay? And I'm sure this is probably where Paul got it. Oh, we went to the third heaven. Oh, really?
We don't know
what
happened.
Did you take an Uber?
We don't know what happened.
Yeah. But, anyway.
He would have said third heaven, too.
Right. But here in verse 8, and God called the firmament heaven. Well, what is what? Here we go. Let's see, the firmament is written here 4 different times. 3 times in verse 7, and once in verse 8.
And in 6.
Okay, but let there be a firmament in the midst of the waters.
Midst of them. In the middle of them.
Well, within each piece. So the waters themselves, okay, here we go. Let there be a firmament in the midst of the waters. In other words, let there be dirt.
Mm-hmm.
See, so...
That makes sense.
Yeah, so now we can understand that when God spit, what's spit but liquid, okay? God created, let there be a firmament. Dirt. In the midst of the waters, in the middle of them, in the very center of them, so they have something to glob to. Just like you spit on a slide, you put it on a microscope, you see what all is that. Yeah. Okay. Well, let's say you take, and you want to try and imagine what God is doing here. Okay, we'll take the slide out from the microscope, and then take baby powder, powdered sugar, whatever. Don't sift it, just drop it in. And then, give it a few seconds and then put it on the microscope and see what happens. The liquid on the outside of it adheres to the solid firmament, okay, the solid molecules that are going on in there. Some of it becomes a paste, others become a glob. I mean, stuff happens, okay? But we see how the globs became planets, and this silky-looking, slushy, slurry stuff has become waves, clouds, even interstellar cloud globules of stuff. Okay, so just so that people can get it with their minds of physics and gravitational scientific stuff, so they can get a little bit of it.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and God called the firmament heaven. Oh, there's 3 heavens. Ooh. Okay, they can stop with that third heaven stuff, because it's like, okay, let there be a firmament in the midst of the waters, and let it divide the waters from the waters. Okay, so this way, depending on nuclear weight and physical weight of each individual planet and moon would have its own weight value. So as it, as gravitation comes and allows things to adhere to other things as far as gravity is concerned, and there you go. And God made the firmament, divided the waters which were under the firmament from the waters which were above the firmament, and it was so. So here we see how gravitation was created, so that a moon or several sets of moons would be around each individual planet. So, like, we look at our moon, our planet Earth, and we have one moon. Mm-hmm. Mars has, I don't know if it has a moon or not, or even Venus or Mercury, but Jupiter has at least 12 moons. I don't know, maybe 20. I don't know.
That's what they call.
Yeah, and
we
then
don't know.
Yeah, and then Uranus and Saturn has. Yeah, they have their own sets of moons and so on and so forth, and so and depending on where God so desired that they should rest in the fixation of space and time, is where God had put them. We had no choice in the matter. Mm-hmm. Same as, well, we were born. Okay, we didn't have any choice in that. Mm-hmm. Okay, scroll on down, baby. Verse 9. Okay, and then the evening and morning were the second day. So the evening, in other words, even the planets themselves, mm-hmm. and the dirt and the space and the liquids and stuff had to cohesively be joined together. Okay, they had to all even out and settle. And they even mourned, grieved, because they were still of God's creation. They did not want to be apart from God. So it's all a matter of the evening out. They had to settle into their new surroundings. You move from spot to spot. You got to get used to, acclimated or indoctrinated as to your new place of living.
Okay.
So you're not bumping your toe in the night, or if you do, you know what you stepped in. Okay, verse 9, and God said, let the waters under the heaven be gathered together in one place, and let the dry land appear. And it was so. Mm-hmm. So we understand that here he's talking about the planet, each individual planet, right on, baby. Mm-hmm. And so we see that this it's totally God's design, mm-hmm. as He has commanded.
Mm-hmm. And He's explaining how He did it.
Right.
And then scientists are sitting there trying to figure out how He did it. Well, read His Word and you'll know. Yeah. You don't just guess, mm-hmm. assume, like Christians and everybody else in this world.
Right.
No, you have to know. Yeah. Read His Word. Yeah. He tells us His truth.
Yeah. And
it's the only truth on this.
And these events took place on every globule piece of work in the entire mass of the entire cauldron of space and time, if you want to call it. So Each planet had these things going on within and about them. Okay? And verse 10, and God called the dry land earth, and the gathering together of the waters called he seas.
Yeah,
and God saw that it was good. Huh?
Yeah. The seas, oceans, whatever, yeah.
Right.
All of them. There's many.
Right. Verse 11, and God said, let the earth bring forth grass, the herb yielding seed,
fruits, veggies,
and the fruit tree yielding fruit after his kind. Kind here, okay, from the very beginning. From the very beginning all the way through time and itself and fulfillment of time and everything else, is a kingdom. Fruit tree, yielding fruit after his kind. Kingdom, after his own kingdom. Whose seed is in itself upon the earth. And it was so. So, God says something, it happens. So and so the tree and the herbs and the grass, okay, he created within each and every thing its own ability to bear its own seed, meaning other extensions, root ball systems,
including man.
Yeah.
Yep.
Right. Well, man doesn't have
they gotta be smarter than that.
Yeah.
They gotta be smarter than that. The roots he's talking about in man are the ones, your beliefs, your beliefs.
Yeah, you're grounded and rooted in something.
Yeah.
Even
what's your faith?
Even in family, you've got some kind of roots.
Yeah.
I mean, Alex Haley, really. Okay, in verse 12, and the earth brought forth grass, and herb yielding seed after his kind, and the tree yielding fruit, whose seed was in itself after his kind.
He wanted us to get it.
Yeah, and God saw.
That's why he said it again.
And God saw that.
It was good.
Well, I mean, we put it in the context of how, actually how Moses got it and how he originally wrote it. And God saw that.
Mm-hmm.
It was good. God saw that.
Mm-hmm.
It was good.
So he's watching everything.
Yeah.
On this planet.
Mm-hmm.
Your every thought, your every motive, every intention, every deed, every word.
Mm-hmm.
He's watching everything.
Yeah.
And that's why the books are on Judgment Day. The books are open, and then the book of life.
Yep. And the evening and the morning were the third day. Now, the evening is everything settling in, all these different things are,
Yeah.
Because why is he speaking this? Because they are part of him. This is why when in Joshua he says, even this rock that we've spoken before, okay, has heard all of the words and all of the things that God has said and we have done. And so,
it will testify against us in Judgment Day.
Exactly right. Yeah.
Our soul testifies against us even, or for us.
Yeah. So the evening, everything's evening out and getting used to being apart from God. And the morning. See, even plants and trees and rocks, birds and everything else are mourning the very day that God decided to... Oh, I actually spit. Sorry. But they're mourning the loss. Man, we had it so good with him. What are we doing here?
Mm-hmm.
Verse 14. And God said, let there be lights in the firmament of the heaven to divide the day from the night. And let them be for signs, and for seasons, and for days, and years. Verse 15. And let them be for lights in the firmament of the heaven to give light upon the earth. And it was so. Hold on. These lights in the firmament, the stars.
Oh, no.
And the suns and the moons to reflect the light from the great planet that's burning, which we all know is sun. Okay, so we are able to get a greater understanding of what he's talking about here. Let them be for lights in the firmament of the heaven. In the firmament of the heaven. Okay, so understanding the differential of what firmament he's speaking of here, it's of space. Whether you know of as outer space, there's inner space, and then there's microspace within man. Inner space, which is the air that we live and breathe and walk within.
His very breath.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And, of course, there's the outer space, which has the other planets and stars and suns. Okay. Verse 16, God made two great lights. The greater light to rule the day, and the lesser light, to rule the night. He made the stars also. So,
sun and moon.
Right. So this is we understand that Moses wrote these things, and he got his earthly tutelage from the Egyptians, which have to know certain things about time and space and suns and moons and stuff. But he went to God to get the truth of the matter. He did not want to rely upon what he'd learned in Egypt and stuff.
No.
He was out there for 40 years learning about God. No. He was 40 years old when he left Egypt.
Yeah.
He was in that desert with his wife, Zipporah, for 40 years.
Right.
And his father-in-law.
Right.
So he had 40 years to learn about God. And this is in, so, as he's getting these new revealings about who God is and was and forever shall be, he's writing them down. In common sense text, so that everybody would be able to understand a little bit better of who God is. God wanted his message simple. The only reason I'm speaking in such terms now is because y'all have complicated it. You love complication and chaos. So there you go.
Well, Satan does too.
Yeah.
And that's who your father is if you're following it.
Right. And so those that are of the scientific community are I hear them now. And it's like, shut up, guys. Shut your closet door. Go away.
Wow.
Yep.
Assumption is a dangerous way to live.
Yeah.
Wow.
Verse 17.
The truth is right here in his word.
Absolutely.
You don't need scientists or any other man. You need God's word.
That's right.
And he will fulfill everything within you. Like Jesus said, he promises.
In verse 17, and God set them, the lights. He set them in the firmament of the heaven to give light upon the earth. In other words, dialed it in. Every other planet and whatever has got their own suns and whatever to give light to them. Okay? We ain't any different. Verse 18, and to rule over the day and over the night, and to divide the light from the darkness. And God saw that it was good. So, in the evening and the morning were the fourth day. So even the light itself had to even itself out. And the morning there too is the light. God said, let there be light. The light came from God.
Yeah,
himself. Right. The ever-present power of the living God created that light, and he saw it. It was good. So these planetary nodules that we know of as suns and stars, quasars, and whatever else you want to call them, they had to even out. So, and verse 20, and God said, let the waters bring forth abundantly the moving creature that has life, and fowl that may fly above the earth, in the open firmament of heaven.
Yeah, in the sky.
Right.
Yeah.
So, and all of these things are from God.
Mm-hmm.
That's why he had to speak them forth so that over the expanse and movement of time, whether they evolved or whatever, I don't know, I don't care. God spoke life into them and they became. He said, be, and they were.
Mm-hmm.
Exist, and ta-da, there they are.
And remember, this is Jesus through the Father speaking these words.
Yep. So all of these different crustacean, like I said, when God said, let there be light, anything and everything that Satan created became rock, stone, So even all these crustaceans and stuff, all of these were things before the flood, and they were actually upon the face of the earth. No, they might have been upon the face of the earth, but the reason they became stone, fossilized, if you want to call it.
Because God spoke light into the earth.
That's right. And so when the light hit the scene, everything that Satan created became stone. As a witness against him. That, Satan's like, oh, look what I created.
Yeah, well, he's not God. And God was trying to show him that.
Right. And
nobody is God.
And God's like,
or gods.
Yeah, right. And God's saying, well, look what I created.
There's only one God.
What I created is still living. Yeah. Still creating its own, after its own kind, its own kingdom. Right.
Thank you, Lord. Glory to God.
In verse 21, and God created great whales. He created them. He didn't just morphodite, whatever, evolve, whatever. He created them.
He created every little thing, even the last bug.
And every living creature that moves, which the waters brought forth abundantly. See? Certain things, yes, the waters did bring forth. So, so science and Darwin aren't completely wrong, but they're not completely right neither.
No.
But
you can't have half-truths, though. Right. That's a lie.
Right.
So they're just liars.
Exactly. After their kind, everything that moves that we see today is what God created.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right.
Nothing on this planet is what God didn't create.
Exactly.
There's nothing that exists that God didn't create. That's what it says.
But here, look here also. And every winged fowl after his kind. God created great whales and every living creature that moves, which the waters brought forth abundantly after their kind, and every winged fowl after his kind. The birds came from the water too. And God saw that. It was good. Verse 22, and God blessed them, saying, be fruitful and multiply, and fill the waters in the seas, and let fowl multiply in the earth. Here we see that the fowl, birds of all kinds, they utilize the earth for nesting and resting their eggs, their young ones and stuff.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Verse 23, and the evening and the morning were the fifth day. So, is it 1,000 years? You know what? This 1,000 years in a day thing, they've made a religion out of it.
They make a religion out of everything.
I know. Look,
Christianity.
I just farted in this pew. Let's make a religion out of it. Oh, it stinks. The religions of stink. Yeah, there's one for you. There's a kiss for you. Stupid. And verse 24. And God said, let the earth bring forth the living creature after his kind. Cattle and creeping thing and beast of the earth after his kind. Kingdom. Okay. And it was so. So the waters brought forth seas and fowl, the winged creatures, okay? They came from the water. But the cattle, other creeping things, and that goes for everything, cockroaches, crickets.
Ants, anything.
Yeah, bees.
Anything.
Well, the bees,
everything that we see today and that is being destroyed by man or whatever, if they existed, it's because God created it.
Yeah.
Not because they evolved.
Yeah, and worms and everything else. Yeah.
Keep going.
In verse 25, and God made the beast of the earth after his kind, and the cattle after their kind, and everything that creeps upon the earth after his kind. And God saw that. It was good. So, is God patting himself on the back? No. He's just enjoying the fruits of his own labors, his own works. And why not? You do.
Mm-hmm.
I do. We all do.
Little bird.
After a certain retrospective, either before, during, or after, or even all three, of thanking God for the inspiration, the idea of what to do, how to create, manufacture, or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Those that are knowledgeable enough of Him to, give Him glory in all things, are people after His own kind. Oh, there you go, little God. Oh, geez, really? If you get it, you get it. But don't make a religion out of it.
You can't.
No. Well, they can, and they do, but it's ridiculous because they're just doing what Satan has done.
Again, I say you can't
Yeah,
make a religion out of anything, because religion, Jesus warns about that in Matthew 23. Read about it. It says, you go all over the world to find a proselyte. Once you find them, you make them the son of hell, twice the son of hell as you are.
Right.
Because you don't even know truth. Preacher, teacher, pope, minister, bishop.
And so the people love complicating things. After what their father, the devil, has done.
Exactly why.
Yeah.
That's exactly why they are complicated.
Yeah.
And they teach complication.
Well, why else have they got it? Because of science, which is nothing more than sorcery.
That's right.
Yep.
Witchcraft is, it says in Samuel, I think it's 1 Samuel, yeah it is, but I don't remember the exact verse. Okay. It says, disobedience and rebellion is as witchcraft. It's the sin as witchcraft. That's dangerous to rebel against God in any way, even in thoughts.
Yep.
But they don't care. They just think, oh, well, I stopped doing this, so I'm okay.
Yep.
Well, no. You're still thinking it, aren't you?
Okay, here we are in the meat and potatoes of us. Verse 26, and God said, let us make man in our image, after our likeness, and let them have dominion over the fish of the sea, and over the fowl of the air, and over the cattle, and over all the earth, and over every creeping thing that creeps upon the earth. So God created man in His own image. In the image of God created He him. Male and female created He them.
Mm-hmm.
It's not talking about Adam and Eve. It's not talking about them either, but right here He's talking about He thems.
Explain it, babe.
God created He thems. Because that's what He says. Let us make man in our image.
Right.
So He said, let us make man in our image. As in what God sees, what He has proportioned and purposed in His own eyes to see. Because He says, after our likeness.
He's speaking about His Son and the Holy Spirit.
Yes, but He's also talking about His own created beings that would worship Him.
Mm-hmm.
Okay?
Absolutely.
After our likeness. So that's why He says, let them have dominion over the fish of the sea, over the fowl of the air, over the cattle, over the earth, and all over every creepy thing that creeps upon the earth. But here in verse 27 is where He gets down to the meat, nitty-gritty, and potatoes of the whole deal. So God created man in His own image. In the image of God created He him, man. Okay? Here He's talking about He created them.
Right.
male and female created. He, them. He, them. Okay? He, them. He created he, thems before he created Adam and Eve.
Right.
Because he needed, yes, please. He needed people to fill the face of the earth.
Right.
So that they would be, like in verse 28. So God blessed them, and God said unto them, be fruitful, and multiply, and replenish the earth, and subdue it, and have dominion over the fish of the sea, and over the fowl of the air, and over every living thing that moves upon the earth. So be fruitful and multiply, he says, to the he-thems. Replenish the earth. In other words, what he gave them the intuitive knowledge there. That, look, trees are going to grow up, and all these things I created, they're going to grow, they're going to mature, they're going to bring forth fruits of their own kind, vegetables, whatever. But I need y'all to take of these things, the seeds that are coming out of apples, oranges, watermelon, anything and everything else, and replant them. Just don't spit them out of your mouth. Get physical with them and plant them in the places I'll show you that is good earth. Okay? And subdue it. Be absolute about what you're doing. Be confident in what you know that I give you to know. And have dominion over the fish of the sea, fowl of the air, and every other thing. Dominion over it. In other words, look, I've given you these things because I've given you to this earth, as well as I've given all of these other things to the earth. And the earth I've given you, I've given you to the earth, and the earth you. You bless each other. Because he said, and God blessed them. So, there they go. He blessed them to be a blessing to their own planet. They want to call it Mother Earth. Whatever. I don't care. They know swashbuckler off my backside. I don't really care what they call it. Because to a certain extreme, just for namesake, it is what it is. But he said, replenish the earth and subdue it. Have dominion over it. Or over the fish and the fowl. Everything that moves upon the earth. In other words, you're going to be the boss, applesauce. Don't let these other things scare you. Okay?
Absolutely.
Okay. So, in other words, he gave them courage from day one. That's having dominion over things. And I don't know why this isn't moving anymore.
What?
I don't know why this... Oh, there it is.
What?
It's scrolling now. It wasn't scrolling before.
Okay.
Verse 29, and God said, behold, I have given you every herb-bearing seed, which is upon the face of all of the earth, and every tree, in the which is the fruit of a tree yielding seed. To you it shall be for meat, something to eat. Verse 30. And to every beast of the earth, and to every fowl of the air, and to everything that creeps upon the earth, wherein there is life, I have given every herb for meat. And it was so. So both man and animal was instructed from day one to eat of the plants and the life-giving, life-producing, life-sustenance of things to fill their bellies. To eat.
And they did.
Yep. and verse 31, and God saw everything that he had made, and behold, it was very good. It was very good. It was complete, absolute. There was nothing else needed to be done about it. And the evening and the morning were the sixth day. So, even all that he created, the trees, herbs, humankind, the heathens, beef cattle, and everything else, had their own points of evening out, getting used to one another. And their mourning too, because they all understood intuitively that they are apart and apart from. They are a part of God and they are apart from God. So there's the mourning. Because of man's intuitive, they all understood. We are from and of God. But yet they missed that interactive presence and being and existence of being within God's very own person. So they missed him. And so we're talking about the expansive between verses 1 and 5 of Genesis chapter 1. Between verses 1 and 5, we're talking about the expansive, quite possibly eons of millennia of time because of the evening. Everything had to settle down. So those of the scientific community aren't totally wrong, they're not totally right, but yet they're putting it in context of more of an eternal time span, because they all want to get carried away with in one day. To God, it was one day. Okay, y'all, don't get all crumpled up with 1,000 years and blah blah blah. Look, that the absolutes, heaven and hell, the existence of the firmaments, heaven, earth, and seas, and everything else. Those are absolutes. Time and space is an absolute. It's a constant.
Existence. Yeah.
Exists. But only until the fulfillment of time itself. Revelation chapter 10. And it was said of the angel that time should be no longer.
Yeah, exactly.
So there is a beginning and an ending.
Yeah.
You shall know your end from your beginning. This is the beginning, yet we find out from the end what our beginning is and was, and until that day shall be.
And we're supposed to return to that beginning before we leave this earth.
Yeah.
In that.
Exactly.
That's born again.
Well, not to the exactment of going, we're going to go back to the land of the dinosaurs.
No. Born again, meaning you have that new life of Christ within you, meaning your thoughts are totally changed around.
Right.
For him and then him alone.
Yes, and even here we see there's no corruption going on.
Exactly.
Even when he created the heathens, there was no corruption.
Yep.
They were all in the innocent state of mind.
Yep.
They weren't all within the land of, what they call it, Eden. Okay? They weren't all there. They were on the face of the earth. Eden was a place set apart just for Adam and Eve. And that's coming up in,
Very soon.
Okay, now, so here we see that from verse 1 to verse 31, we have 6 days of timeline of God. Yet, each one of those days, has a certain amount of time element, like I just said, between verse 1 and verse 5 was eons of millennia, as well as the others. But here we're getting into, or is it the heathens? In verse 27, so God created man in his own image. Let's see, verse 26, let us make man in our image, After likeness, after our likeness, let them have dominion over the fish. Okay, so in at the end of verse 25, that's a certain time span. Okay, yet it was in that same day, day 6, that God created the living creature and the cattle and make man in our image. Called them he thems. Male and female created he them. He
created.
That's
the key word.
That is. It is a buzzword
key
right
word
there.
is created. Now, in Adam, he formed.
Right. We'll get to that in just.
That's the difference. That's why everyone was asking, well, where did Cain? Where did Cain get his first wife? From the heathens.
Right.
They're the only ones that were there. They didn't have any daughters then.
Nope.
Adam and Eve. So, there you go.
Yep. So, yeah, that's why I'm making this distinction and separation of knowledge here, is because in all of this time span from, what I say, verse 25 on down through 31, is day 6. Which is, okay, for the religious folk out there, okay, in your 6,000th year, okay, and God saw everything that he made, and behold, it was very good, and the evening and morning were the 6th day. So, if that's all in the 6th day, and there's nothing said about Adam and Eve. Not one word.
Not yet.
No. We've got a ways to go until that's happened.
Right.
Because, so we see that there's a different time span spent between when he created the heathens and when he created Adam and Eve. How do you say that? Well, okay, if he'd have created Adam and Eve.
He would have said it. He would have said
it. And God ain't going to be a liar to Moses.
No, not at all.
And
thank God. Moses got it all.
Yeah, and Moses and God were friends. So, and God don't lie to friends. Jesus doesn't lie to his friends. The only people that lie to their friends are liars.
Darkness. They're in darkness.
People that believe lies. You don't have to be a liar to believe a lie.
All right.
Okay, that is chapter 1 of Genesis. The book of Genesis will be into chapter 2 here in just a very short time span here. So, love you much in Christ. Have a great day, and we'll talk to you soon. Peace of Jesus with you all.
Peace of Jesus with you. Bye.